During the 19th century, the medical care and institutionalization of the mentally ill had not much changed since they stopped thinking of the mentally ill as being possessed by demons in the Middle Ages. In the United States, as in Europe, family members afflicted with a mental disease such as schizophrenia, psychosis, or even retardation and depression would be taken care of at home, which usually meant being shut into an attic room and hidden out of sight from other respectable people. The less controllable would be shoved out the door, where they would wind up in prisons, almshouses, or madhouses. It wasn't really until 1840 when social activist Dorothea Dix advocated for a more humane treatment of the mentally disabled that insane asylums began to be built to house the insane. Although that first step was to be admired, unfortunately, the proper treatment of mental disease was not really known. Metal cages, punishments and beatings, shackles and restraints, ice water baths, electroshock therapy, and frontal lobotomies were the normal treatment for the more uncontrollable in their cases. There were others later in the century who tried to change that form of warehousing and treatment, albeit usually for a more wealthy clientele. In 1859, Dr. Robert J. Mellecourt wanted to use some of the newer theories of mental health treatment that he had been studying. Dr. Mellecourt was the scion of a wealthy Connecticut family and had been studying abroad in Vienna. With his family's blessing and money, Dr. Mellecourt was able to convince the state government officials in New York to share in the funding of a state-of-the-art insane asylum in their state. They, in turn, also used federal monies to make this happen there. The governor and his aides chose poor, rural Delaware County for the location of this asylum. Most of that area included the Catskill Mountain region of the Appalachian Mountain Range, near the Pennsylvania border. It also included Shawtuck Mountain State Land Reserve. The federal monies involved there were able to build this on state-owned land. The powers that be were hoping that the endeavor would bring much-needed money and employment to the mostly dirt-poor residents of the county. They would be able to pump up the state coffers and at the same time point proudly to an institution that, although purposefully tucked away out of sight on state land, would bring well-needed prestige to the state. Hiring a family friend, Horatio Spencer, an architect trained in Europe also, to design the asylum, they both went over the top and came up with the huge, Victorian, Gothic, overly designed monstrosity that fit perfectly with both of their overindulged egos. Dr. Mellecourt was actually a good man who wanted a facility that would embody the new Kirkbride plan of treatment that was now coming into vogue. This building would be his legacy. Once opened, the Shawtuck Lunatic Asylum drew the best doctors from all over the world. This perceived mental health utopia catered to a mostly well-heeled clientele, hoping for the very best treatment for their unfortunate loved ones. None other than the world-famous Dr. Ludwig Hammendinger from Vienna, who had trained with Johannes Muller, and Dr. Emmett Heller of Philadelphia, elected to practice here and brought their staff. Part of the huge building was made into suites for the most prestigious doctors there, including Dr. Mellecourt himself. But because of the state's insistence on a more remote location for what they termed their madhouse, the first crack in Dr. Mellencourt's meticulous plan started. All of the additional doctors, nurses, attendants, orderlies, and staff were all from out of state and traveled to Shawtuck so they would be able to work with the best doctors in the world. Poor, rural Delaware County had no lodging for the day and night staff to live in. It was sparsely populated, consisting mostly of poor subsistence farmers or dairy farms. The county seat of Pickford, at that time, was really only a small collection of stores catering to the locals. The good doctor had to use some of his own money to build a series of small homes for his workers to live in. So intent on the look of his asylum, he never fully realized that the pristine forest parkland was out in the middle of nowhere.
To keep listening to this audiobook, I've left you a link in the description so you can do it, at no cost thanks to Audible's 30-day free trial.